Your hand nice and supple, like a lady's. The upper room. I didn't realize white folks were so serious about their pie around here. Y'all should have been in the place last night. The boom boom room. He walked off smooth with my drink, didn't he? My name Jangalang, Jangalang, Jangalang. You gonna eat your cornbread? As the pappy. Hey, my name is Tiffany. Welcome to the channel. I like to break down media messaging with comedy and conversation. And we do that with deep analysis on the movies we watch and the movies we love. And today we are talking about an incredible film, not just because it is one of my absolute favorite movies ever, but many of you let me know in the comments how much you love it too. The movie is Life, starring Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. And y'all have no idea how excited I am to talk to somebody else besides the voices in my head. I have watched this movie again and again, and still to this day, I pull out so many golden nuggets that are so relevant to our lives now. But I know I don't have to convince you. If you're here, it's because you are in one of two camps. You either love this movie as the cult classic that it is, or you've recently rewatched Life and you haven't yet soaked up all the amazingness that people purport it has. But don't you worry, by the end of the video, I guarantee you that you're gonna wanna watch this movie a few more times to catch everything that we're gonna be breaking down. Now, quick disclaimer, I'm gonna take my time walking you guys through this piece by piece because it is a passion project. Passion, 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 passion. Like I said, passion project. This movie has so much depth. It is deeper than you remember, I promise. And of course, this is an analysis, so it will include spoilers. But the movie came out in 1999, so you had your time to watch. Okay, let's get into it. The movie Life is described as a buddy comedy drama that opens up with an elderly inmate telling this story about two of his friends, Ray Gibson, played by Eddie Murphy, and Claude Banks, played by Martin Lawrence, who are both wrongfully convicted of murder and then sentenced to life in prison. Now, as we go back in time from 1998 to Harlem 1932, we meet the smooth-talking pickpocket Gibson and uptight banker Banks. I just got that. But we meet them after a run-in with crime boss Spanky Johnson, who sends them on a trip down to Mississippi. And this trip changes their lives forever because they are sentenced to this prison farm where the majority of the film takes place. Now, the story was written by duo Robert Ramsey and Matthew Stone, who also wrote Intolerable Cruelty and Soul Men.
Let me see it. Be careful, fool. Think you don't want to know how to hold a gun, man? I'm a member of the NRA, man.
I actually haven't seen either one of those, but the director of the film, the late Ted Demme, also directed Salt-N-Pepa's music video, Push It, which I have seen. And it's clear that these men did their homework. As you know, the central characters of this film are black, but the writers and the director are white. And to me, the story is still very authentic in its lens. Now, I only bring that point up because the film was made at the turn of the millennia, and yet this producing team was not afraid to bring up controversial topics. Trigger warning, we are going to talk about divisive things such as racism, police brutality, the prison system, slavery, the N-word, death, suicide, and more, because this is the internet. I know we like to argue about these things, but do me a favor, slow your roll. Before you put foolishness down in the comments, please show respect for your fellow community. If you get in these comments and embarrass yourself and embarrass me because you don't know how to act, we can't be friends anymore.
Newsflash, Ray, we ain't never been friends.
Ouch, that hurt my feelings, Claude. It's 1932, Harlem, and during this time, Harlem was a place of art, jazz, social consciousness, and activism for African Americans. We're talking literature, painting, music. It was poetry in motion with talented people at the helm such as Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Bessie Smith, Duke Ellington, and Marcus Garvey. And this is where we meet Ray Gibson for the first time as he smooth talks his way into a club that he's been banned from.
Hey, my man, how you doing?
Oh no, not tonight, Ray. Spanky's not happy with you.
Oh, is Spanky here?
Do yourself a favor and find another place where they let you in the front door.
Hey, what about that time I got your girl in alligator shoes, man, huh? What's the problem? Did I come through for you?
Yeah.
Bitch was wearing pigskin when I met her. I got out the swine, she wearing alligator. Let me in, help a nigga out. There you go, that's how it goes, brother. That's how it goes. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Also, fun fact, Spanky Johnson, the crime boss and owner of this club, is played by none other than Rick James, who recently had hip surgery and was therefore actually limping in this film.
Who was he, Ray? Friend of yours?
Now, the first thing the movie tells us is that Black people are diverse. And Black people are not a monolith. I wouldn't think I'd have to say this in 2023, but alas, meaning that diversity in blackness doesn't fall on perfect stereotypical lines like you might think. Ray Gibson is introduced as a lone wolf who survives by preying on others. With impeccable comedic timing, he picks out his target, spotting Banks from across the room as a mark to steal from. And yet we find him endearing even though he's a con man.
Tiffany, how you doing, man? Look at you looking all sharp. Make me feel good to see colored folks doing good for themselves.
Yeah, well, I went to Jefferson, so you must have a different Claude Banks in mind. Excuse me.
Banks, on the other hand, is your typical keeping up with the Joneses. He thinks he's better than everyone, even though he fears commitment and emotional availability. And though Claude seems to be of a higher class, we might dislike him because we all know someone who thinks their stuff doesn't stink.
Hey! Ain't nobody trying to hear that bull.
You always trying to say something at the wrong time. Finish and do whatever you got to do.
And because the writing in this movie is outstanding, we don't have to wait to get settled in. Within 10 minutes, this movie sucks us in with history, comedy, and authenticity. It's masterful, and we already care about what's going to happen to Ray and Claude. This is one of the strongest points of this movie. The character work is fantastic. I mean, it allows Eddie and Martin to bounce off each other beautifully as they had in films past, like another favorite, Boomerang.
Well, I'm gonna get the beer, but see how our thing is here?
Oh, yes, we're on the same wavelength.
There it is.
We're the same cat.
Get him there.
Okay, I get him. I'm gonna work on him.
And it also shows how invaluable it is to have talented artists and a competent director who respects those artists to drive the story. Now, because of that mutual respect, we get to see Eddie and Martin play with each other. Ray attempts to charm Claude, and Claude is doing everything he can to resist liking Ray. So easy to watch, and we laugh at it because it shows us how effortless it is when two people completely trust one another on screen. And we get some of the most memorable scenes ever on this car ride.
Smell that?
Yeah, I smell something.
White only pies is probably the scene that I quote the most, but it's because I laugh every single time. And I've probably seen this movie over 50 times at this point. They are driving from New York City and are well into the Jim Crow South, which, surprise, surprise, is incredibly racist and doesn't even let black people be served in a restaurant. They blow past the no colored allowed sign. While Ray is a lot more aware of how things work, Claude is naive and determined to have a pie by any means necessary.
I'm not driving no 35 miles to get no pie. Lady, ma'am, okay, now we want some pie, okay? We are hungry, okay? We want some pie.
And we once again understand the strength of the character work here. Claude goes after what he wants, but Ray is way more interested in survival. And that's gonna foreshadow for later. Now listen, I ain't dying over no pie, but we can see ourselves in the characters, and that makes us much more sympathetic to their plight. This trip reveals how important time period and place is to the overall movie. When Claude and Ray get to Natchez under the Hill, we get another history lesson in how things work in Jim Crow South. Slim says that the only color that matters under the hill is green. Yet we quickly learn that black people don't have the same kind of safe space in Mississippi the way they do in New York. When Ray gets caught up in a poker game, he bets his daddy's timepiece to settle the score. But after being conned by grifter Winston Hancock, played by Clarence Williams III, he loses the watch and the control of his life right along with it. Now, I'm gonna save the rest of this gem until the very end of the video, so I encourage you to stick around and watch.
Hey, don't even say watch no more. You can't say watch around me. Say little clock or something.
My bad. Now make sure you smash the like button so I know you're tracking with me so far. The like button. See what I did there? If you've seen any of my other movie reviews, you'll probably know that I really love smart production decisions, such as lighting and the use of contrast and fluid motion of a camera. And the opening to the Mississippi State Prison Farm is no different. We see the bus pull in, lines of men walking, picks on shoulders, black and white stripes, smooth camera pan to land right on Ray and Claude in line with the sergeant. In comparison to earlier scenes like the jazz club, where colors are saturated and deep golden, the prison farm is dingy and dry and void of life. And I appreciate that mood change because it lets us know as the audience that things are about to get real tough for our protagonists. And that's obvious, right? Like, we all know that incarceration is a very brutal experience in the United States, especially, and the free labor that comes from for-profit prisons is very much a new codified slavery, one where states make money by filling and overfilling cots. As the sergeant says, you prisoners are now the property of the state of Mississippi. And what I appreciate is how the comedy is not missing in teaching these very hard truths. But in 1917, the state penitentiary report said that black men made up about 90% of the prison population, with the majority being illiterate for serving long sentences. So Ray reads this letter where pretty much this man's entire family has passed away.
Look, it's from your mama's neighbor, Mrs. Tidwell. You know who that is, Miss Tidwell? She thought you ought to know that your second cousin, Bo, died. Bo died, and your other cousin, Sally, on your daddy's side, she died. Well, apparently your sister died, too.
Jenny?
I want to say Marlene here. Marlene died. Oh, no, Marlene. Jenny died, too. Jenny and Marlene both dead. Anybody else got something they want read? I can't blame you.
Now picture this. You're on a plantation, sentenced to a life of hard labor and inhumane conditions, and you have to protect yourself from the hopelessness of your situation and protect yourself from other inmates.
Hey, girl, you gonna eat your cornbread?
Oh, Trevor. No, not at all. I want you to have it. Willie, you mind passing this down to...
Hey, no, I ain't gonna. Don't pass your cornbread to him. That's your cornbread.
Ray, I'm a grown man, okay? I'm not gonna eat this cornbread. If he wants the cornbread, damn it. Have the cornbread.
If he wants some cornbread, let him go up to the front and get his own portion of cornbread. That's your cornbread.
Maybe I ought to eat your cornbread.
This entire scene is wild, and I swear it's the precursor to Shrek and Donkey, because Michael Taliaferro, aka Goldmouth, has got to be the biggest man I've ever seen.
Listen, little donkey, take a look at me. What am I?
Really tall?
No!
But I only want to talk about this scene as a segue into the brilliance of this ensemble cast. Now, if you're a new sub and you saw my You People review, thank you for being here. That movie was an experience. But the ensemble cast work was abysmal because they had so many great people that they did not utilize well at all. But life gives everyone their moment to shine. We got Anthony Anderson, Guy Torry, Barry Shabaka Henley, Clarence Williams III as seen in Tales from the Hood, Rick James, Oba Babatunde, also seen as Barry Gordy, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., also seen as Joanna Mann. That movie was interesting. Bokeem Woodbine, Heavy D, Sanaa Lathan, and of course, the late Bernie Mac.
Name Jingling.
I appreciate it. Jangle-A, you say?
Jingling.
Much of the ensemble's lines were ad-libbed, so it makes it that much more hilarious with Bernie being Bernie. He nails this role as a man who is institutionalized and in a relationship with Miguel Nunez's character, Biscuit. And it's the lazy eye and the looking at Claude like a snack that really sears Jangling in our memory.
Claude. Yeah, Claude.
Your hand nice and supple, like a lady.
Eddie Murphy commissioned this script from the writers, but his real genius was encouraging the director to let the comedians go, which is why the chemistry in this film is sublime. There is no holding back when you let a room full of comics flow with each other. The pacing is perfect because the comedic timing is not rehearsed. I dare you to find me an ensemble film that does it better. Besides Coming to America, I dare you.
To America.
Now, since I've already revealed mine, who is your favorite cameo in this film? Let me know in the comments below. I could literally send y'all home on this scene because it is so powerful and so well done. But we've still got movie left, so I'm not going to. Take out your pens and paper, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time to investigate the funny. At this point in the film, we've learned that Ray has his own imaginary cotton club called the Boom Boom Room that he continues to pitch as a mental escape for his fellow inmates. And utilizing the ensemble cast, we see how the Boom Boom Room builds out into a full-blown fantasy that each character is a part of. We got Cookie eating the best steak he's ever tasted, Poker Face rolling dice, and Golden Mouth guarding the door. And quick side note, I saw this movie when I was probably 9 or 10, and I had no idea that this was Biscuit Rag until I was much older. I genuinely thought it was a famous jazz singer. I really hope I wasn't the only one. What I love about the Boom Boom Room is that it incorporates something that we don't always see: shared vision. The reason that this scene is so funny is because the entire community of characters is participating as their best selves. There's this element of buy-in that we don't always get in real life. It's kind of like in musicals, when everyone in the town immediately knows the song and the choreography. And you might laugh because it seems so far-fetched or be entertained because it's really delightful. But in this scene, everyone feels authentic to who they are outside of being a prisoner. They have all escaped with each other in this fantasy. They are free in the imagination, and therefore their hope is not lost. Now, we're going to come back to that point, but Ray has really given each of them and Claude a role to play that brings life, pun intended. And Camp 8, though it's not the same as escaping that prison farm, it is a bright spot for men who have all but been forgotten. Now, I'm going to juxtapose these two scenes that seemingly have nothing to do with each other, but actually bring back the diversity of blackness that we discussed in the beginning. Cant Get Right, played by Bokeem Woodbine, arrives at Camp 8 with the mind of a child. When the other inmates realize that he's mute, they do their best to guide him through his prison stay. But after realizing that Cant Get Right has a knack for baseball, Claude and Ray see him as a ticket off the farm. And we all know that the sweet May Rose is the warden's daughter, and after Cant Get Right gets up close with her, all hell breaks loose in Camp 8. As the pappy. Apparently Bernie ad-libbed this line, so the reaction, the laughter is actually genuine from the rest of the cast. They were breaking. And as hilarious as that scene is, the sadness that we see on Cant Get Right's face at the end can't be overstated. It's the exact foreshadowing we need as we transition into the party scene and see Biscuit is just as melancholy. And yet another incredible range by these actors in this film, because Miguel Nunez Jr. and Eddie Murphy completely improvised the next scene.
What you sitting around looking all sad for? What am I gonna do out there, Ray? I can't go home to my mama like this.
You talking this crazy. Your mama gonna be happy to see you when you get home.
Not like this, Ray.
Hey, look. World done changed a lot. It's 1945, boy.
Not for me, it ain't.
Now, watching this scene reminds me how heavy life can truly be, especially in matters of identity. There's a part in the beginning of the movie where Winston Hancock is beaten by Sheriff Pike, and when he retaliates by pulling out his sword, Pike says to him, "You just committed suicide, boy." And here we are at the gun line. Biscuit can't go home, and he can't stay here. He's a man who is seemingly out of options and believes that his sexuality is reason enough to escape life permanently.
Where you going, Biscuit?
Oh, where you going, boy? Don't do that, do it! Hold it like that! Don't do that! Oh, Biscuit! Come on, man! Biscuit! Hey, come on, man! Come on, Jake, come on now.
Now, I need to pause here because this scene gets really real fast. And this scene hurt my heart to my core because it speaks to a decision that you only come to when you're at the very end of yourself. And maybe you're watching right now. That's you. You feel like the world would just be better off without you. I need to say this to you, to anyone who feels hopeless, if you think that nobody sees you and that nobody cares about your pain. I care. I love you. But more than that, God loves you. And He created you for a purpose, and you are meant to live and not die. And I just want to hold space in this video for you. An obvious theme throughout this movie is hope, or rather the void that only hope can fill. Cant Get Right gets a pardon, and Claude loses hope of ever escaping the farm. Ray pushes on, but his hope seems in vain as he fails time and time again to escape. Now, this is from a BET article, and it points out that because it has no place to feed, hope dies quickly in prison. And that's true in life too. Hope dies quickly if it has no place to feed. Now, one of my favorite editing tricks in this film is also one of the saddest parts of the film. Wyclef Jean produced most of the original music for the soundtrack, and as a master storyteller, his score is this poetic tribute to all of the characters and the time as they each age out of the camp. The slow fade as each inmate passes on is breathtaking and sinister. It points to the cruelty of time. It grounds this comedy in so much reality, which, as discussed, is funny because it's true. And even this montage of world events reminds us that these men are still in prison for a crime they didn't commit. And you might be like, it's a comedy, don't take it so seriously. But we have to laugh to keep from crying. Comedy can teach us things that we would otherwise be traumatized by. That's why I always encourage folks to go check out my playlist of comedy sketches after they watch these videos. But back to the movie. We get this fabulous old age makeup from Rick Baker, who was nominated for Best Makeup and Hair at the 2000 Academy Awards. Now, it might look familiar because he also did the special effects makeup for the Nutty Professor movies and for Norbit, which I also find hilarious. Now, I laughed heartily at these old age scenes, and him and Ray getting stuck on the bottles is some of the best banter between the two leads.
I beg your pardon? You said something to me? I'd have knocked you off the bottles, put a bullet in you, and be halfway to New York right now. Oh, my goodness. After all these years of blissful sounds, I forgot how annoying the sound of your voice is.
We really can't forget that Eddie was the comedy king of the 80s and Martin came in king of the 90s. So seeing them at the height of their careers together is truly special. They carry this movie in a way that you forget that they aren't these actual characters. We might know Life as a classic it is, but the general reception when it premiered wasn't so great. The film had a budget of $80 million, but only made a little over $73 million worldwide, making it a financial disappointment. However, because of the timelessness of the piece, it's since garnered a very large cult following. Ray and Claude moved from the prison farm to the superintendent's home to serve as domestic workers, and we get a chance to see subtle and truthful acting from Martin Lawrence. Claude is driving the superintendent to go pick up the new warden, and he catches a glimpse of how the world has changed since he's been in lockup. Now remember earlier, we talked about the timepiece that Ray lost in that poker match. The climax brings us full circle with Sheriff Pike now revealing to Ray and Claude that he is who killed Winston Hancock and knowingly made them take the fall.
Ray, give me the gun. Come on now, give me the gun.
Hey, Claude, he got my daddy's watch. He killed Winston Hancock.
Don't listen to him, Wilkins. He's crazy.
Gibson, I want you to stop now. Think about what you're saying.
I know just what I'm saying. That block the only thing my dad ever gave me, and he got it. Tell him what you did.
But Ray takes back his daddy's watch, and with it, the sobering reality that someone else has been holding his life in their hands this entire time. Like, when you really sit with the comedy and the reality that this story tells, it's so much more about friendship, love, loss than anything else. That's really any good story, but Life is one of my favorite movies because it shares so many powerful lessons that apply to us now. Ray and Claude had their lives stolen by a system, and they had their time siphoned by events over which they had no control. And even with all the heaviness that we just waded through, the movie's actually not about racism or slavery or prison entirely, although those are elements that it touches on. I really interpret Life as a warning to escape the endless cycle of hopelessness that the system tries to put you in. There are things in this world that will try to crush you and manipulate you into thinking that you have no other choice but to be broken and traumatized. Life is hard. There is nothing easy about living. But if you are watching this video wondering, well, how do I get out of this cycle? You can choose to wake up and pay attention to what you're being fed.
Wanna be somebody, if you wanna go somewhere, you better wake up and pay attention. If you wanna be somebody, if you wanna go somewhere, you better wake up and pay attention.
It's not lost on me that Ray was a scammer who preyed on other people and then got preyed on. It's not a coincidence that Claude lost hope when his dreams had been selfishly motivated in the first place. Of course, they did not deserve to spend their lives in prison, but I want us to see that we have to be accountable to what we're engaging. Are we taking in things that feed our hope, or are we letting it die?
We next. I mean, let's be real. We next. We on deck. That you like baseball, we on deck. On deck for what? For what? That upper room, nigga. The upper room with Jesus.
Even here, I'm still laughing because that scene, you hear a little bit of Sherman Klump in there. Anybody else? And taking it at face value is funny enough on its own. But the evergreen lessons have so much to offer us. Ray and Claude's final plan of escape is through death.
Said Claude figured he could steal a couple of bodies from the morgue, right? That way, when they set the infirmary on fire, that way, when they find the 2 bodies, they think it was them.
What makes you think that ain't work?
I never said it didn't work.
What, you mean to tell me that this is not Ray and Claude in these shoeboxes?
But my final question for you is, what do you have to die to so you can live? What has to die so you can have life? Now, if you made it to the end of this video, you're a real one, and I am so humbled by how many of you have found me with the You People review, and even more grateful that you were willing to subscribe. Make sure that you hashtag Boom Boom Room in the comments so I know that you made it to the end. And by the way, this movie is actually not a true story or even based on a true story, in case you were wondering. The last line in the movie was just for dramatic effect. Now let me know if you are a lifer or if you have another favorite comedy movie that you want me to do a deep dive on. I would love to have a backlog of videos for all of us to discuss. And until the next one, bye now.